What's up, Tweener heads? Welcome back to another Tweener head tennis video today on our channel. If you are new to the channel, hey, how's it going? My name's Phil, and this is where we talk about tennis in a more casual way for you guys to understand what's going on and off the court. Now today we have a good friend of mine, Temba, who is a coach down in Florida. He's worked with some of the top players now in the game. When they were younger, he worked with Whitney Osuigwe, Madison Keys, Osaka, has worked with Francis Tiafoe as well. So he's known a lot and trained a lot of good players. Now, I wanted to get his opinion on what's going on right now, what we could be doing differently, and it was a very candid conversation that I thought a lot of people should hear. So that's why I wanted to talk to him, because we were very honest about what's going on in today's tennis world when it comes to trying to appeal to the younger generation, what we could be doing differently, what can change, what can do a little bit more to kind of progress the game of tennis. So I really wanted to get his opinion on everything that was going on, and I hope you guys do enjoy this. But before you do that, make sure to hit that subscribe button with notifications turned on, as well as making sure you leave a like on this video as well. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. Thanks, guys. Enjoy. But
okay,
for you, like, you've been staying busy, you've been working out with people. Who have you been working out recently with? Because I know you've been doing a little bit of both.
So I have one job is that I work at a tennis academy, Pro World Tennis Academy in Boca Raton.
Okay.
Actually, they're about to go through this whole name change thing, but that's a different. So I had a couple of young players, 15, 16, nationally ranked, and then on the other hand, recently, Ayan. Francis came down, she graduated from UCLA, she turned pro, was supposed to start playing this year, and then Corona hit. So she came down and literally been working with her for the better part of 3 weeks.
Okay.
Had some other pros come down. Alexa Noel was here, and then I think she got a little sick, and, Tyra... what's her name? Tyra Black, Marine Pateau. She's like a French player, 400 and around there. So, just basically those girls and a couple of the other like younger ones, 13, 14-year-olds. Just been doing a lot of that. So yeah, that's been pretty much it.
Do you work primarily with the women more than the men, or do you? Because I see pictures with you with both. I know you've worked with Whitney Osuigwe, and it seems like you can do a little bit of both.
So it's funny because I actually started off. When I got into the pros, I actually got in with a bunch of guys. Two of them were African. Guys that I knew. I'm a little older than them. I knew them growing up, so they came down to Florida. I helped them out, Jonathan Igbinovia and Arnold Segudo. And at the time, I was also at Everett Academy, and I was working with Madison Keys. And she was really young at the time.
Gotcha.
And I started working with her from 8 to, I think, 13, 14, and she did really well. And so it kind of just weirdly became this reputation like, so the next person who is reaching out to you is a girl.
Okay.
Then it's a pro. Then I kind of became this, he's always with girls. But I also work with guys also. It's just for the better part of the last 7, 8 years, I've been on the women's side. Yeah.
And do you think, what's the biggest difference you find? Because if you worked with men and women, there shouldn't really be a difference, but do you have like a different coaching strategy when it comes to that, or a different approach?
Yeah. For the core of what I do strategically is still the same, because I approach both regardless of both genders, the challenge of it. But initially, when I started coaching the women, you kind of are aware of certain things like the emotional side of it, the women flat out are more competitive than the guys. So, you could go to a tournament with a dude that's a pro, and he can go get chopped up, and you'll be sitting at the bar that evening with the coach of the guy who chopped him up, and the player in some instances having a beer.
Yeah.
And it's not like, okay, whatever, unless the guy was a douchebag. and then you have a problem.
Yeah.
Women, you're not having anything. You're not having any of that. So
Wow.
I take you on. I need to pour out my emotional, whatever's going on in my life, my parents, my boyfriend, my tennis. If I even they see you talking to one of the other girl players, it's like that's already a problem. Because I don't like her, and it's not anything that I think it's building. I think it's just their way of staying uber competitive, so that when I go out there, I have an extra reason to want to kick this girl's butt.
Okay, I got you.
That kind of stuff. So you kind of have to be sensitive to it.
Mm-hmm.
You both of them require you to be very, very attentive when it comes to the personality, because each player is very, very different, and each gender has certain aspects of their DNA that you just kind of have to be aware of. So there's a whole list of. I mean, we can go on and on about it, but I try to keep the core the same, and for me, it's all about the work.
Okay.
And the why. The first thing I try to get through with them is like, why are you playing? And once we get that out of the way, I kind of have them understand who I am as a person, my personality, and then the rest is the rest. Just going forward from there.
So you kind of intertwine the personal and professional aspect of not only yourself,
yes,
but theirs, right?
But theirs. You have to because for the sake of longevity, I know coaches who say, look, I don't care if it's a girl, I don't care if she's having boyfriend problems, or if her parents are this or that, or whatever, or if it's a dude, like, I don't really care if this guy wants to go and get slushed and drink 3 beers after practice, that he's 25 or no. Because it has some correlation and some effect on your ability to go out there and do your job.
Gotcha. And
still get the best out of them. So you kind of have to, with respect to their privacy, of course, but you kind of have to intertwine the professional and the personal to a certain point.
And you're basically touching every point for them to kind of find this reason to fight, find this reason to come back, find this reason to play, in that sense, right?
Yep, exactly. Because, I'll give you an example. There was a girl that I worked with back in the day, Eastern European girl, and, it was funny because I'm the kind of person where I feel like if you're going to do anything in life, like, I don't believe in doing bare minimum stuff. Like, if you're going to venture into something, you're going in there seeking greatness. That's just my mentality. And she says, look, I don't really care too much about Grand Slams and all that kind of stuff. If I win one, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just want money.
Okay.
And I go, well, what, I mean, come on, the glory and everything. She's like, look, where I come from, girls that look like me end up with, like, older, you have, she came from very poor, upbringing and everything. Girls like me, pretty looking, all of that, there are 1 or 2 ways you can get ahead in life. You go with an older dude and they come calling the nice cars and everything, and then you go do that route, or you find something you're good at and you go work your butt off. Sports is one way, but tennis is apparently the top choice for women.
Wow.
So I want that Louis bag. I can either go find a way to buy it myself or have someone buy it for me. And she chose, I want to buy it myself. So for her, you tell her, okay, first round prize money is $2,000. Winner's check is, I don't know, $60,000, $80,000 at a WTA international level 2. So once you put money in front of her like that, numbers, she sees that, she's already calculating, okay, I need to buy this, so if I buy this, I'll have this left, and that was her motivation.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's not traditionally what I would recommend anyone who's trying to be a professional tennis player do, but every time she went on the court and she played against another girl, she felt like this chick is trying to take my money.
Wow.
And that was what got her going. So I was like, hey,
Do you think people take that as a selfish reasoning? Because I think the biggest example that everyone can relate to is Nick. And so, like, he's just doing it his own way. He's just doing it to have fun. And for her, it's she does it for the money. She does it for her own reasoning.
Right.
Do you think people see that as a selfish or more? I would say just it's looked at in a bad light because it's not the real way that people think they should be playing.
And you're absolutely right. And the problem with that is, I grew up, I'm 41 years old today, and I grew up old school, like everything. Old school discipline, old school way of training, like, you knuckle down and do all of this stuff, and you don't really disparage your opponent, and you keep your emotions in check, like until the end of the match and all of that. But the game has evolved beyond what it used to be. Now, that being said, obviously a certain degree of respect should be still shown the sport, but you have to incorporate certain thoughts and feelings when you're looking at people. Like I give you an example, like with Nick, for example. I'm fortunate enough to be able to know him off the court, and he's a really, really nice kid. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't understand, Nick was a chubby kid. He was a little overweight.
You were saying about Nick and how, his background.
Yeah, so when people see all this stuff he's doing and they're judging him and all of that, personally, I don't agree with all of it. I think he's way too talented. He's somebody that you could be talking about in terms of potential number one in the world some days. But I can't necessarily knock him for doing it the way he's doing, because you don't know what he had to go through to get to where he is right now.
100%.
And this could be his way of saying, screw you to the world and everyone else that thought that, he was going to amount to nothing, or he was just, and I think if people really took the time to understand people's personalities and backgrounds, they will see, okay, look, at the end of the day, he goes out there, he plays matches against Fed, and he always plays his best matches, behavior-wise, everything against Fed. Why? He respects the guy. Yeah. Because Fed hasn't never, if you look back at all the comments Fed has had about Nick, he hasn't been overly or outrightly critical about him. He almost understands to a certain point. Yeah. So if you just showed him that same degree of understanding, who knows? Maybe at some point, what you're telling him will start to filter through. Yeah. And he can still go out there and be this personality. Because look, I like the high tops. I like the basketball jerseys on the court. I like the tweeners and all of that. Yeah. But that's his way of keeping the sport interesting. Yeah. And I think at this point people should be willing to embrace the differences in personalities and just the generational gap and the difference in how people do things nowadays. As long as it's keeping the sport interesting without overly disrespecting it, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and I think to touch on with him and his different approach to the sport, his different swag that comes with the court, the Jordans, the low tops, the jerseys, and all that, his flash. I think that's what tennis, personally, I think has been missing, and people don't understand that.
That's my son.
It's all good. Yeah. I think people don't understand that. So, what do you think tennis is missing, particularly from gaining that, I think, lower age of demographic when it comes to attracting a new audience?
I mean, my opinion, it's really simple, because I don't think that the WTA or the ATP is doing a good enough job of marketing its players. Okay. And the reason why I said that is, you take a kid like Nick, for example. Mm-hmm. If he was in the NBA, Dennis Rodman was way more of a disruption in terms of off-the-books kind of stuff. Yeah. With his personality. You have guys like, you have guys like who was the other one? You know, even going as far back as Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
Like even now, you know, you have whether it was Andrew Bynum with the Lakers. It was I mean, the list goes on and on. You know, the league needs to be able to look broadly because now they're in a situation where you have top three. You know, Federer and Nadal and the women, it's Serena and whoever else. They're getting ready to retire, and now all of a sudden you're panicking like, oh, we don't have marquee players to
market to.
You know, sell tickets. Yeah, to market to. So, you know, why not go after like, hey, look, you have I don't know, for lack of a better example, Evan King. Or a guy like Tommy Paul who's having a breakthrough year, like why don't we go after this guy and maybe he was a hockey player when he was growing up and he morphed into tennis, and maybe there's thousands of hockey players out there who are also tennis fans and like, oh, you know what, maybe I can give a shot at it too. Stuff like that, you know. So I think for the longest time the obsession with, you know, the marquee top 3, 4, 5 players, you know, and they kind of lost the younger generation. So unless I somehow have like a really good run and I end up from qualies into main draw or at Indian Wells or Miami Open or one of the slams, you're not going to know who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's the stupid thing about it. It's like Yannick Sinner is like, you know, the kid was skiing for 6 months and playing tennis for 6 months. Like, really? If you ask how many people even know that, like I'm talking to kids that are his age who are obsessed with him now on TV.
Yeah.
And I tell them that and they're like, no, come on, you're making that up. They don't know.
He was a champion skier in Italy.
Exactly.
He was like the number one skier for like 4 straight years in the juniors.
Right, exactly.
And they don't understand like, okay, he won the next gen, but now push it.
Right.
Like
push that.
Push
exactly.
someone else.
Yeah. You know, so it's comical because, you know, you look at what's happening in the other leagues. I mean, I was watching an ESPN special on Jean Morant the other day and how this kid came through and how nobody picked him. I mean, ESPN did a special about this kid.
Yeah.
Number 2 pick behind Zion Williamson. So you wonder why his jersey is one of the hottest selling jerseys, why all the young kids like him, because the NBA does a very good job of pushing
different players.
You know, dynamic, different players.
Yeah.
That's what keeps their league interesting. Not the same 2, 3, 4. You know, and I show up one day and I tell you I'm playing Tanasi Kokonakis in the crowd and people are like, who is that?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, really? Are you, you know, tennis fans are really dumb. Like, I'll call it what it is. Tennis fans, the average tennis fan, even some who think they've been following the sport for 20 years, they're very dumb when it comes to their knowledge of other players.
Yeah.
They just don't know. You know, and that's, you know, they need to start with that. They need to start tracking these kids from the juniors. I'm not saying go out there and put helium in their heads and blow them up, but, you know, you should be able to go out there and do more. And that also falls on the responsibility of, you know, the TV, whatever they call them, the TV analysts and the commentators. Those guys have got lazy at their jobs too. You know, so it's one hand kind of feeds the other, and as soon as they start doing a better job of marketing these guys, you'll see a total difference in how people perceive players, so to speak.
I think that's interesting because I think on Twitter I think Francis retweeted this or something, but I saw a tweet that said a player was a walking bucket and people sleep on him, and then someone replied, said everyone in the NBA is a bucket. Everyone can score. Everyone can play.
Yeah.
And I think in tennis, people don't realize that either. People are ranked in the world for a reason, and there's a reason why they got there. No one should be taken for granted. Yes, one can be better than the other, but in tennis, it's like basketball. If you play one-on-one, anybody can win. Anybody can win on any given day.
Right. No, for sure. Like, even on the women's side, if you look at, like, how many people were expecting Sonia Kennan to win Australian Open?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Anyone to, you know, and out of the blue. But this girl has been working really hard for a minute.
Yeah.
This girl's been out here putting the work. It was the same thing with Naomi Osaka. Like, another player that, I remember when I worked with Naomi almost how many years ago, the nicest girl, her sister, family was super nice.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford to pay for the kind of training everybody else was having. So, they got a lot of free help, but very super grateful. Always put her head down, did the work, and I nowhere, so to speak. The girl does what she does.
Exactly.
And now, for the better part of 5 years later, she's the richest tennis player in the endorsement one in the world.
Yeah.
But this stuff can happen every 2 years.
I know, it can change.
Or even every year.
Yeah. It can change like
as
that.
As crazy as it sounds, there's a lot of players that are in very similar situations. But of course, it's like, we'll just wait till they blow up and then we'll just give everyone the generic version of how they got here.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that.
It's crazy. I think we talk about it so much when it comes to other players that are on the come up and people, and you put it very bluntly when you said people who follow tennis still don't know tennis. And it was funny. I think I mentioned this when we first met in Delray. Was at the time Anisimova made the semifinal of the French, Coco Gauff made the quarters of Wimbledon?
Yes.
Who do you think would be recognized more at that time last year? An American that won, who got to the semifinals of a Grand Slam versus someone who made the quarterfinals at Wimbledon? Who do you think would be recognized more to a casual tennis fan? And I guarantee you 95%, maybe 100 would recognize Coco Gauff before Anisimova, who made a Grand Slam, who went farther in a Grand Slam than Coco. But it's like...
Yeah. Which is crazy because, it's... I think people have their own ideas of what they think, and going back to the conversation we had about like Nick and changing the dynamics of what you know to be tennis and a tennis professional is people like to align themselves with what they've known a tennis player to be like or behave like.
Exactly.
You understand? So if there's zero charismatic behavior, if there's no flair, whatever, that's that person. And then anyone who kind of goes out of bounds, especially if it's something you don't like, you still know who they are, but it's almost like you're forcibly trying to put them in a mental box because you don't want to have to kind of look for this person because tennis players are not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
So people can talk about Nick. One of the most revered basketball players in the last 50 years, whether people agree or not, is still Allen Iverson. And Allen Iverson changed the game. And even whether it's Kobe, whether it's Mike, everyone will tell you, like, man, even to this day, everywhere he goes, this guy is always crying. He's brought to tears because the love that people show him is crazy. But he's still the same dude.
That's also interesting because I think it doesn't matter if you win Grand Slams. It's like Dan Marino was one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, never won a Super Bowl. Allen Iverson never won a championship. Charles Barkley never won a championship. Nick doesn't have to win a Grand Slam, but he's still going to be regarded as one of the most, I personally think, one of the greatest ball strikers ever to play the game.
No doubt.
So to get that through maybe a traditionalist's head is very difficult because it's not revered as the way to play tennis or the characters that came in tennis, because we had McEnroe and Connors who were like the bad boys of tennis, but they get revered for that because they won Grand Slams. But that's the difference.
And if you go ask a 10-year-old kid now, who do you want to be? If you ask a 10-year-old kid who watches tennis, or a 12-year-old kid, or a 13-year-old kid, 14, who do you like better? Nick Kyrgios or Novak Djokovic? I bet you at least 8 out of 10 are going to tell you Nick.
100%.
Because there's a certain excitement that he brings when you watch him play. It's like Monfils.
Yeah, 100%.
No matter as much as I respect him, he can win 50 Grand Slam titles. The Monfises and the Kyrgioses and those guys will always top him when it comes to just appeal.
Just like excitement, just to
right.
watch.
Just to watch, like, hey, I am going to pick up a racket because this dude just showed me how cool it was.
Yeah.
Boom. You're always going to lose that battle to those guys.
Yeah.
And that's just something people need to come to terms with because, like, even the marketing of tennis players has gone, stratospheric. So,
yeah.
I mean, you adapt. Like,
you adapt or die. And
you adapt. Yeah, that's it.
Like, and for tennis, it doesn't seem like the adapting is working as much as they thought it would, or some people thought.
Because unfortunately for tennis, you look at all this stuff that's going on, all these young guys and young women come breaking through. But who are the people still running tennis? Who are the people still commentating on ESPN and Tennis Channel? Mm-hmm. Again, so I'm not knocking them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, some of these people, I was talking to someone the other day, and I think we were talking about something, someone's favorite song or whatever, and I said, I think was it Jamie Loeb? Yeah, and I said, oh yeah, if you want to make Jamie happy, just start playing Cardi B. And this lady was like, oh, who is that? I go, okay, well, Cardi B is this rapper. It's like, oh yeah, I don't really listen to that kind of stuff. But there you have it. Like, you have people talking about tennis on major networks who not necessarily, you don't have to listen to rap music. You don't understand the culture.
But just be aware of it.
Just be aware. Fashion-wise, you don't, Serena's out there doing a clothing line and Venus and whoever else. All of this stuff is foreign to you guys, but yet you guys want to go on there and talk about them to potentially new and upcoming fans in the game. So we're relying on you to relay the information that you know about them to me to make it interesting for me to want to follow them.
Yeah.
But you guys are regurgitating the same playbook. And
it's frustrating. Sometimes it just becomes very frustrating to listen to the same thing over and over again in tennis.
Yep.
Just give me something new. Just something to nibble on. Just something new to just like bite it, like get it. Just give me something.
And I think if any one of these networks was smart, like, stuff like your platform is great because you have you've pretty much covered and you've interacted. You're not only someone who plays tennis, you know the players, you actually take the time to do your homework. People need to hear voices like that on air because you can reach far more of these younger generation that most of these guys can. And I'm not saying they quit, but I mean at some point you can't forcefully spoon feed someone.
It has to be like that.
Yeah,
it's sad.
You can't force things down people's eardrums. Eventually, they're gonna throw it up, and that's tennis viewing. Honestly, if you could just mute or cancel out the voice and still be able to hear the sound of the ball going back, I think most people would do it. And there's no knock on anyone out there. It's just it's a very popular opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And the last thing I want to leave you with before we go is, it's kind of like when you put on the Masters and you hear that music and people fall asleep to it. People still know the Masters and put it on just for that sound effect. Imagine if you left tennis on and you just heard the crowd and the ball bouncing. Like it would be, I think that would just be the same effect. It would be the same exact effect.
Yeah, it would be bliss. Like, I mean,
imagine.
As much as I hate to say it, it would be bliss because
just take a nap on the couch and just go, just knocked out.
Yeah,
that would be great. Well, Temba, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and giving us these opinions.
Pleasure.
We really need to hear this stuff, so I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me, man. It was great.
Thanks,
it was
man.
Great.
Take care now.